With that, I would like to welcome you all. And if you can go to the next slide, Michel, I'll do a short introduction. We will start by Michel Coudron. He is one of our senior consultants at CoolProfs and founding father, if you will, of the Data Mover. Next to that, we are very happy to have Sander van Dijk from Vopak with us. He'll have most of the time today, and he'll talk about how he is using the Cool Data Mover at Vopak. He has a couple of different case studies, and he'll introduce us to all of those. And then finally, we'll end this webinar with Jeroen Beesemer, CTO at CoolProfs. So with that, no further ado, Michel, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Camilla. Okay, my name is Michel Coudron. As Camilla just said, I will give you a brief overview of what the Data Mover is and what its main features are. So I'll also show you some screens live, so you'll be able to follow what actually is going on. This is not intended as like a full in-depth review of all the features, because that would be a little bit too much for this webinar, but I hope after this first introductory session, you'll at least have some clue of what it actually is all about. Okay, so let me start with this slide first. So what is the Data Mover? Essentially, it is a tool to move data between OutSystems environments. So whether it's an on-prem environment in the past, or a mixed one environment where you have two separate environments, one is in the past and one is on-prem, we will be able to move data between them. So it's OutSystems environments, OutSystems applications, and we move the data between those environments. What we have is we have our central central theme, which is called a data package. And that is actually the definition of what data will be moved. I will show you that in a moment, real life, so that you will be able to get more feel of it. But it's nice to know what it really is. So first of all, the Data Mover itself, and by that the data packages also, are fully aware of all the entities and relationships within your applications. So when you have your Data Mover installed in your environment, the Data Mover will see all your entities, all your relationship, and know how the relationships are. And that way it will be able to move the data to get a grasp of how your data model is compiled. When we make such a package is essentially just a collection of what data do you want to move, which entities do you want to move. We do an automatic completeness and consistency check validation. That means you make a package, you define what do you want to move. In case we recognize, okay, you have some relationships which are not correctly done or which you are missing, we'll give you an error message, or at least a message saying, okay, you need to include that one as well. The great benefit of that is that you always have a package which you can create, which you can move, which you know that once you have your package defined, that you can export it, and then you will also be able to successfully import into the other environment, into the destination environment. And I also included the third bullet, support for all data models. We see a large variety of things happening in data models at our client sites. I've noticed some of the things there, like circular references, tables relating to each other in a circular way. All kinds of binaries, large text fields. No, well, you can see it there on the screen. We handle all those situations. We haven't found in situations yet in which we cannot cater for. So that as for you to know that your data model, however it may look like, is not something which a Data Mover cannot handle. So what does the Data Mover do? As it says there, it is a two-phase process. We have an export phase and an import phase. So we export from our source environment, of course, and then we import that as a second phase into the destination environment. Intermediate, we store all the data in files. Come to that back a little bit later on. What we do is you don't need to think about transferring the data between the environments, because in both environments, as well as the source environment as in the destination environment, you will install the data mover and they will talk to each other. That means we will have an automatic data transfer between these environments, giving you like a seamless experience. Also, when we move data, there are basically two scenarios which we see. First one is you have a destination environment, just like the greenfield environment. Virtually nothing is there, so we move the data in and everything is fine. We also have another scenario, which is we already have existing data in that destination environment, and you basically want to merge that data which we are exporting into that new environment together with data that already exists in that environment. We also support that use case. It's what we call matching. So both scenarios are supported. And the last bullet there, referential integrity validation. This is like for you to know when on a technical level, we see all kinds of data records which we move across. We insert new records, but we make sure and we check everything that the referential integrity of your application is always being kept up to date. In some cases, even we have the OutSystems does allow you to ignore referential validation, integrity validation. We never went, we just move the data, but when that happens, we also give you an error warning or a reporting warning. So you at least you know which data is being moved. There is a full track and trace essentially of a full audit log of everything that's happened there. So you will be able to see it, and also you get some more feeling of how your data actually looks like. Okay, so this is like the basic thing. You create a package and then you move it from the source to destination. I will show you in a demo of how do we create such a package. So I have in our test environment here, I have, this is the, so for you to know, this is the basic screen, the first screen, the home screen of the data mover. We have a set of data packages here. We create new packages, but already compiled one of which we use quite often is the Cool Air package. This is a cool, and we have a demo application, which is our Cool Air airline reservation system. And I've created a package for that. So when I click on this, I go to the details. And what you'll see is first you're presented with a list of all modules in your application. So of course, we're basically interested in entities which are in those modules, but first we have to select the module. So you have all the modules there which actually contain entities. I've selected the Cool Air already previously. So when I click on Cool Air, never mind these, I'll explain these later on. You have these entities here. So you see that I've selected some entities here and also didn't select these entities here. That means that you are free to select whatever entities you want. So you decide what's in the package, you decide which data will be moved and which data just remains as it is. So basically, and then what we have here, we can expand a little bit further and you see that even on an attribute level, we have a number of options there. For instance, I want to, for instance, anonymize the name of a passenger in this case. So for instance, I say, give me a random name, first name and last name. Very important in case you want to move, for instance, data from production to a non-production environment. I'm not going to bother you with all the details, as I said before. So basically, we have the modules and you have the entities in the modules. And you can have also, just to show you here, also included in your package models, entities from the Server Center module. So you have users and tenants, which you might also want to include. So you can have as many modules of entities of modules in your package, and that defines actually what you want to move. And then I'm not going to show you because it might take too long, but what we can then do is export the data to an environment, and also import the data. And basically what happens is all the data within the package will be moved. So that is on a very high level overview of what the data mover does. I'm going to show you. Oh, sorry for that. A brief overview of the features. What first thing he says, okay, we're migrating data between our systems environment, as explained. Data in which BPT processes the second bullet points, we also migrate, because basically in our systems that is also data which resides in the database. We also support that. Same goes for users. So if your application refers to users and you have foreign keys to that user table, we support that as well. You can take those users along. As shown, we anonymize. We have the option to anonymize the data on an attribute level. And what you see there was like the out of the box options, but you can also make your own anonymization scheme. That is what I've meant with the custom scheme. You have the option to define data filters. That means you do not have to migrate all the data, but just a set, a piece of it. We have time zone conversion in case you go to a PaaS environment. We even have soft key support, which is a relationship which is not modeled in out systems, but you do have it in your data. We can use that. I think Sander will talk about that a little bit later on. And basically, then we have we have also a scheduler which allows you to not only move data but create a whole set of moves from environments to another environment and schedule them like at night or daily or whatever. And we have an API available which you can handle that yourself. And I think a good thing to know is that bullet, the CDM is a 100% OutSystems application. I think the most important thing for that is that we do not require like any additional privileges or rights to your data. We are just an OutSystems application and we can deal with your current security setup. GDPR and Sentry compliant, and as said, you have full audit logging of all the steps. One thing I want to show you, that is the last thing, is I want to mention, we have in the Forge a free application, which is called the Cool Data Model Info Tool, which is a very useful tool to just get insight into your data model. You install it, you press create an overview. It gives you a spreadsheet of all your entities, relationships of all your applications in your complete environment. We use that tool ourselves, but we thought it might be useful for you as well. Okay, that's what I wanted to tell you about the data mover. Sander?
Thank you, and then I will take over. Just give me a brief moment to share my screen. And here we go. So yes, my name is Sander van Dijk, working with Vopak Global IT, and I have a slide about the Cool Data Mover in practice at Vopak. The topics I'm going to talk about is Vopak at a glance, a bit of background on Vopak and OutSystems, the data migration on the OutSystems platform, and why we have chosen for Cool Data Mover, and a couple of use cases to show you some scenarios that we have been using. First, a bit about Vopak. So Vopak is the world's leading independent tank storage company. We're storing vital products with care, over 400 years of history, and also a focus on sustainability. We ensure safe, clean, and efficient storage and handling of liquid products and gases for our customers. By doing so, we enable the delivery of products that are vital to our economy and daily life, ranging from chemicals, oils, gases, and LNG to biofuels and veg oils. Just think of it like we're kind of a storage companies for these type of products, and our customers can basically rent the capacity of the tanks and such. So if we look at, sorry?
No, I'm just a double check. I still see your introduction screen. Is that just me or?
Oh, that is because it did not.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Continue.
that was. I tried to let me just a new share. See if this will. Okay, now I will share the correct one. Sorry about. Do you see my screen right now?
That's better.
Yeah. Okay, it was just kind of an introduction. This one. Sorry about that. So yeah, Vopak. I told you just a bit of the background on that one. We have currently operating at, with 78 terminals in 23 countries, and we have a total storage capacity of 36.6 million cubic meters. So like I said, customers basically can rent capacity and store their products in our terminals. And if you look at the coverage of Vopak, you can see we have most terminals in the Americas and Asia region, but also in the Europe and some in South Africa at the moment. So Vopak and OutSystems, since 2016, Vopak started building applications on the OutSystems platform, and the main goal was to replace the current ERP system. And it's still ongoing, so we are currently in the process of replacing the system, but we're rolling it out per terminal basically. So we're already past halfway. But next to that, we also because we have the OutSystems platform, more ideas for more application and initiatives started to pop up. And if we look at some of the types of such applications in total, the major application is our terminal management system, basically being used on most terminals right now, which basically holds the operational activities on like the work activities and all the paperwork on the terminals. The agreement and order management system, which has an interface to the terminal management system as well. So when a customer places an order, for example, the order can be sent to the terminal management system. A customer portal where our Vopak customers can log in to see real-time data about their the stock levels of tanks, their rented capacity, their order status, and more like that. We have a document management system, which is more like an internal Vopak application used for storing business critical data, where the OutSystems platform, the application built on that acts as a front end with all these kind of PT process for periodic reviews and such. And also service notification portal, sending out notification about IT outages, application, server maintenance, that kind of stuff. And if we look at our OutSystems platform within Vopak, it's good to know we're an OutSystems cloud customer, so we're basically the platform as a service on AWS. We're using SQL Server databases. We have a global and regional implementation, so we're using the AWS data centers in Ireland, but also in Americas and the Asia region. And that's because we want to be as close to the terminal as possible in order to lower the latency. And the main goal is also to keep the software development in-house. If we look at data migration on OutSystems, as a PaaS customer, we have some restrictions. We have limited database access. We can create, update, insert, delete data, but we cannot truncate data, and we have limited permissions to access the database as well. We don't have direct access to the front-end server, so we cannot install any agents and more like that. But also these restrictions are set by OutSystems in order to ensure the quality of the platform. But it comes with a couple of challenges with migrating data. So we have no possibility of installing additional software, limited to no possibilities to perform certain actions directly on database levels, such as the truncate, for example. And also, you need to have additional knowledge about about mapping the data model. So we did a selection phase with Start for data migration. And the first thing we started with was trying to create a custom module per application that could migrate the data between environments. But it needs to be part of the development process, and it's pretty intensive to keep up to date, and also tolerant. Well, it can be errors can pop up easily with that. External tooling also looked into, but you need to have direct database access. And if you want to be Sentry compliant, that's not an option. There's also the limited access, so limited set of permissions, and the user accounts being used for that. And also you need to have extensive knowledge required to map the table names and attributes. So external tooling, we tried it, but we soon got to know it was not going to work. And the third option, an OutSystems application on the platform, in this case, Cool Data Mover, which has the advantage to use the OutSystems metadata, and it can be used for all modules. And there's also no additional software and database access required. So like Michel already explained, it's 100% an OutSystems application. That is a big advantage here. So some reasons why Vopak is chosen for Cool Data Mover: OutSystems built application, no external tools and software, no additional database permissions required. Knowledge of modules and data model is preferred, but also not required, because you can easily select your entities, and Cool Data Mover already, if you select an entity, it will show like, oh, but then you also need to include this in your package to make it work. It can be used by multiple roles, from development to operations. It's quick and easy to select the data, to import, export, and delete. It provides useful features such as lookup, update, anonymization. More on that later, because there's a couple of things I want to highlight for our use case. And also it is Sentry compliant. Some features that we have been using in our move processes, basically in order to improve and speed up the process. Some of these that we actively use: tenant filter. So basically all Vopak terminals in our terminal management system, each terminal represents a tenant, and by using the tenant filter, we can export data for that specific tenant and also delete it for that specific tenant. The scheduler, which has been very useful to create workflows. You can basically select multiple packages across multiple environments and just make sure to create a whole workflow. There will be some examples later on. The soft foreign key update. We have multiple entities where foreign keys without a direct, where an ID is stored, which is not a foreign key on the entity, you can select it to also update the ID upon import. New entity tracking, which is very useful if you have selected the module and after a deployment, new entities have been added. Cool Data Mover will show you the new entities, so you can either select or choose not to select them in your package, that they will show up. There's also the option to auto add entities. So if you have a module that you want to keep up to date with all the entities included, you can easily do that. And move reference users, which is basically the option just to include all users and their authorizations to include it in your package. Also, some examples, these will show up in the use cases later on. If we look at the development process overview, we have a development to the test environment. Basically, we have development, dev, test is all single environments. And we have multiple pre-production and production environments, each one or more environments per region. So once we deploy from the test QA environment to pre-production, some of the applications are hosted on multiple environments at once. So in the following slides, I'll be showing a couple of use cases and showing some of the options available along with the features in the scenarios here. One thing to note, in our case, tenant is terminal. So if I might talk about terminal data or tenant data in our terminal management system, which is a multi-tenant application, each tenant represents a terminal. So if I use the word terminal data, that could be tenant data in the way for OutSystems. So the use cases I will be talking about, there will be 5 use cases. One, full data refresh of an application. The second use case will be about multi-region production to a single QA environment. Third one about migrating a full application, reproducing a production issue, also very interesting and useful, and a snapshot for training purposes, where the scheduler will come back as well. So case number 1, full data refresh of an application. So our main goal is to do a full refresh of an application, which means delete all the data and get all the data from production into the QA environment. And it can be, requested every now and then, whether people want to select the testers basically asking for a recent set of data. So what we can do with Cool Data Mover, of course, we created the packages, but with the scheduler, we can create a workflow with the packages, which if we, with a single click of the button, we can just say like, okay, export the data, then do a validate of the data on the target environment, which basically means if there's something wrong with the data inconsistencies found, then it will not continue, but you will get notified about it. Well, if the validation is correct, continue with deleting the data on the target environment and then import the data, which basically with a single click, you can do a full refresh of that application. Case number 2, which consists of a couple of sub-steps here, but like I told you, the terminal management system, multiple terminals, multiple regions, so multiple production environments, but we do have a single QA environment for this use. So what do we need to do? We need to merge data from multiple regions. We need to be able to copy multiple tenants and also refresh a single tenant. In order to do so, we start with merging shared data. So we can have data that is unique to the environment, but if you want to make use of it in the QA environment, you need to make sure to have the data there as well, but it comes from multiple production environments. So what did we do? We create an export of a set of the shared data. We define that imported, well, the package definition on all production environments. And upon import, we make use of the lookup function. So we say like lookup for a specific ID, lookup for a specific name. So we can keep the data up to date. We can merge it, and we can just make sure when we go into the next step, the data is available for use. And the next step then is copying multiple tenants. Recently, we actually did this, which there was a request to have a new set of tenants on the QA environment. And with Data Mover, as mentioned before, the tenant filter, we let an export run on the multiple production environments using the tenant filter, and we were able to import that data into the QA environment. And because it's each their own tenant, it was pretty easy to do. And also, now and then we get a request, I want to refresh the data for a specific tenant. And the idea is then, well, we have the data already in the QA environment. The rest of, well, all the tenants need to be there, but there's one tenant that needs to be refreshed. So in that case, we also created an export of that data using the tenant filter. And then on the target environment, we deleted data only using the tenant filter as well. So the tenant is basically cleaned up. The other tenants are just, they can continue working with that. But with importing the data that was used here, we were able to do a full refresh. So like the first case, export, validate, delete, and then import the data. Easy enough. If we look at the third case, migrating a full application, we at some point we had a second QA environment, and we wanted to move the product catalog from the first to the second QA environment. And with Cool Data Mover, we were able to also create a package with all the entities selected, but also including the users and authorizations using the move users option there as well. This made it easy to migrate the full application to a different environment. Reproducing a production issue. This also was actually done recently, where we had an issue with a specific order in this case, and we were just unable to find the root cause with the data available in the QA environment. So we created a set with a custom filter where we basically set here a custom filter where we say order number is 1, 2, 3 in this case, but also apply anonymization because we want to make sure there could be customer sensitive data in it. So with this filter and the anonymization applied, we were able to export the selected data into the QA and import it into the QA environment. And we were able to start debugging the code and able to find root cause. And if you think of this process earlier enough, when you think like, hey, there's an incident unable to reproduce, this will be a time saver here. And also a snapshot for training purposes. Basically, an environment has been set up for training purposes. You want people to work on it, but also every week clean it up and set it back to that snapshot again. In this case, the scheduler comes back here again, where we were able also to easily just have a snapshot of a package created, and then every week delete it and then import that data again. So we basically just every week set it back to that snapshot version. So the scheduler has been very helpful. You can create quite big flows with it, so there can be a lot of packages with it if we do a big refresh, but also for some of the simple tasks it's very useful. And these were my use cases I wanted to talk about, and hopefully this has given some insight into the use of Cool Data Mover within Vopak. Now the word is up to you, Ron.
Yeah, thank you, Sander. Impressive to see all those use cases at Vopak. To be honest, makes me a little bit proud as the creators of the application, of course, and how to see it's being so well used. And well, as you have seen from Sander and from Michel, the Data Mover, a tool, a application with a lot of manual clicking, a lot of manual actions. We at some point automated, like Sander showed, with scheduler, so you can actually create workflows and create with one press of a button, you can create an import and export. You can do multiple steps instead of doing them manually at each environment. So it's already moving towards what I'm going to talk about now. Like I enjoyed driving a manual gear. I also love using a fully automatic car at the moment. So there is a point where we want to automate everything. We want to, we as developers, we're getting more and more manual tasks these days. It's not just building code. There's a lot of things coming towards us. So if we can at least automate a couple of them, it will make our lives a lot easier. So Sander, yeah, thank you. So I'm going to talk about the automation of the Data Mover and how that opens up even more use cases for you and also Vopak to start using in the hopefully the near future. So first, of course, why automation? I already told you a little bit about it, but there's coming a lot more to a development of OutSystems applications. So Sander, if you can press the button one more time, please. Then here you have a software development lifecycle. It's what everybody does when they're creating applications, and how you, what you're doing in each step within your development process. That's up to the customer, up to your process. And what we like to think about and what we're working towards and what we already have is a fully automated environment without any manual intervention at all. So that also means that when we're Having a fully automated pipeline, we also have the need of, well, refreshing test data. We have the need of doing data migrations fully automated. So we needed to do something within the data mover as well. It also means that there are more use cases for the data mover. Test data management is one. Like Sander said, we're refreshing data for a training environment, but we can do the same for before our testing starts. If you're in a fully automated pipeline, you also need to do some regression smoke testing in the acceptance environment. And well, to make sure that your quality is there, you also want production-like data. So before we kick off those automated tests, we also want to refresh or get an export from production and import it on the acceptance. So we have the best possible code quality applications pushed to the production environment. So let's see how we actually did that. How did we make that possible? So it's not rocket science, of course. So we added a REST API to the Cool Data Mover for you to use. It's something that we have incorporated within our DevOps pipelines. It's however you see fits, whatever scenario you want, you can trigger the data mover at any point within a pipeline by calling the REST API. But it also opens up other possibilities because like test tooling, like a test tool that you used to test APIs, you can also trigger the data mover, make part of your test scenarios. So you can either decide, I'm going to refresh all the data, or I am going to make it possible from a test tool, which can actually trigger an API, trigger a data migration or a data refresh of a certain application before I'm going to trigger the regression test for that specific application. So it opens up a lot of scenarios. And yeah, if you can go to the next slide. It's a very short talk about me. It's not usually I'm talking for hours and hours, and I see my colleagues looking. So I promise to keep it short. There's a lot more that we can talk about. And one of our friends and partners that is also using the data mover as a test data management tool is going to talk about it on the next step. It's a call to action. He's going to tell you how you can actually leverage to be a full test data management tool and show you how, what I've been talking about, how to actually do that with your testing scenarios. So hope you enjoyed it, and back to you, Camilla.
Thank you. I see that we still have a couple of minutes left on the clock. There are a few questions that have come in. The first one is for Sander. You spoke about the 5 use cases. Which one would you say had the most impact to the way you do business now?
The most impact, I think, the second case I was talking about the copying the production-like data for the terminals has the most impact, because it's a request that we get often, and it's also one of the main use cases from the start. And at some points, especially right now, I did basically a full refresh with a couple of I copied a couple of tenants along with it, but now I'm already getting requests to add more tenants, and using that scheduler, I created a whole workflow with the scheduler to just make sure if I get the request again to can deliver it basically sooner. And so, and it's a lot of developers and testers have been requesting it because if a new terminal goes live into production, they want to have that production-like data as soon as possible. So when it goes live, soon after we have to do this process, and that will help them to improve their development, basically.
Exactly. Thank you. I can't even imagine how you did it. Well, before you had the data mover, but must have been a tough job.
Very creative.
Exactly. And maybe a question for Michel. Are there any limits to the amount of data you can move?
Well, I think the basic answer is no. That's something which we have done also like previously with the data mover. We've seen use cases where we've moved like hundreds of millions of records. Then the main reason because that we do not have those limits is that we split up our whole migration job into tiny little pieces which are done. We call them workers. So we split it, we fire away using light BPT, a lot of those workers, and they do the work for us. So whether we split up our job into 10,000 or a million little parts is it's not a limit of the data mover. That is something which we do on a regular basis. And also we see, for instance, I think last month we had also a customer which moved 100,000 users as part of their application. So currently, I'm not aware of any limits. No.
Good, thank you. Well, with that, I would like to thank Sander in particular. Thank you, Michel and Jeroen also. Like I said, this session has been recorded. We will make sure we share the recording with you in case you would want to share with your colleagues. If you want to have more information, feel free to contact us. We will be happy to give you a demo. And like Jeroen said, we actually have two live next step events, one on the 15th of November and one on the 16th. You're more than happy to join. And actually, when you close this session, you will be automatically routed to the registration page. So with that, no further ado, thank you, everybody, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.